Hey guys, and welcome to another Paranormal Q and A video. In this video I'll try to answer as many of your questions as I can in as much detail as possible, but I get so many questions every day that I just can't answer them all. So if I don't get to your question in this video, don't worry, I might get to it in the next one. If not, just drop it down in the comments and I'll answer it as soon as I can. So without further ado, let's jump into the first question. Enigma Seeker asks, how do you know it's not demonic in nature, or is it that you just don't want to accept that? I mean, you never really know exactly what you're dealing with, because we can't really prove it either way, but as I've said in previous videos, I don't believe for a second that all spirits are demons. I just don't, and that's not me being in denial or not wanting to accept it. I just think there's a lot of evidence out there to suggest that spirits can have a positive influence on people's lives as well. They're not all negative, they're not all trying to possess you or, you know what I mean, create full negative energies around you all the time. I think that there is just a lot of kind of spirits out there, and my evidence is a prime example that obviously before I would have considered that more likely to be demonic, but now, like, if these are demons, then they're doing a terrible job at being demons. Like, I'm not in any way negatively responding to what's happening. Like, I don't feel that I've been attacked in any way, and I just think if they were all demonic, they would have made a move by now. I just think they're not. They're just not. Like, I believe these were human spirits, and they are trying to communicate for whatever purpose, and that's just my opinion. Megan asks, hi Michael, I was wondering, have you ever heard a spirit speak to you with your own ears and was not using any equipment? Or have you ever seen a spirit with the naked eye without using any equipment? Now, there have been instances where I've heard a disembodied voice, where I've not been recording or anything like that, and I've just heard something speak. To my knowledge, I've only heard female voices, and I don't know if that's because maybe they carry in a certain way, the vibration, the pitch maybe just carries in it, you hear it a little clearer. But I have heard disembodied voices. Now, I don't think I've caught one on camera. Correct me if I'm wrong, there's quite a lot of videos, but I don't think there's been an instance where I've heard it while filming and heard it on the camera. Like, it's usually been EVPs during the filming sessions. As for seeing them, way back when I had that sort of shadow entity around, I saw that quite frequently back then. Like, it's normally kind of out the corner of your eye. But the most solid that I've ever seen it was the time when I was woken up in the middle of the night and it was kind of luring over because it was kind of right there. Now, it was a shadow that you could see through it, but it looked solid, like it had some kind of mass to it, and that was the clearest I've ever seen. Now, as far as other spirits go, I think I've seen Anna in my mind's eye back when I first started doing the meditation experiment, but not with the naked eye. Like, I've not seen her around the house or anything like that. So there has been instances, but it's not in any way a regular occurrence. Teresa asks, Michael, have you ever had a near-death experience? My thought is that might have something to do with why the spirits come to you. Just an idea. Now, you could actually be onto something with the whole near-death experience thing, because the theory goes, and I'll get to my experience in just a second, that people who have had near-death experiences have come so close to the other side that the veil between them and what comes after, like the spiritual realm, has been thinned through that experience. And so spirits on the other side are able to see that, and therefore this person becomes more susceptible to paranormal activity. It's kind of the same reason that apparently children are more likely to see it, because they're not yet desensitized to the other side. They are still very close to it as far as the timeline goes. It's the same for elderly people. Like, either side, you are closer to the spiritual realm than you are in the middle. Like, the veil is thinner there. And it's interesting, and like I say, you might be onto something, because when I was actually a baby, I had pneumonia, which I think I mentioned in a previous Q&A, and I did nearly die from that. Obviously, I recovered. It was a very traumatic event for the family, but I'm fine. I grew up as normal, but it wouldn't explain why it took until only 6 years ago for me to start experiencing things, unless through my skepticism I've completely wrote off any previous paranormal activity. But it is a very interesting theory, and yeah, like I say, you could well be onto something there. Cam asks, I'm really interested and intrigued about ghosts and spirits and everything surrounding them. Should I begin investigating ghosts? And if so, where do I start? I think if your interest is that strong and you are enthusiastic about it, then I say go for it. Do investigations, because the field is not going to grow. There's not going to be new evidence unless more people get involved. So I can't sit and say, don't do it, it's dangerous, this, that and the other. I would be a hypocrite. But just be aware of the risks. And as I've explained in many videos, that there are risks involved. You know, you are dealing with unknown entities. So, you know what I mean, take that for what it is. But if you do want to start, there are a lot of apps out there if you wanted to do it free. But personally, I would start by going on like a group hunt. Like there are loads of groups that get together, do paid events. You know, you pay 30 quid for a ticket, and then you and about 15 other people, along with a paranormal investigator, go out and you do a little ghost hunt in a haunted location. That is probably the easiest way to get into it, is just to experience it first. See how you feel in a haunted location first before going and investing in loads of equipment. After that, I mean, just go with the basics. If you can get a camera, a digital recorder, and a pen and paper and note everything down, you can pretty much go to any haunted location and start investigating. Dujay asks, have you ever felt threatened? Now, there have been times where, when I'm doing an investigation, the mood in the room changes. In recent months, even in the last year or so, it's not been really that bad. But like I said, during certain investigations, the mood has changed, where I feel like something's entered the investigation or the session that I'm doing that is negative, and it's at them times where I felt uncomfortable and like maybe there is a risk factor involved. Like speaking at Daniel and Anna, and you know, the general spirits that pass through spirit box sessions and things like that, I don't feel in any danger. It's just communication, but it's in them instances where the mood and the whole feel of the room changes that I've felt like I might be in some kind of risk. Other than that, it hasn't been since the negative entity was around that I've actually felt in any danger whatsoever. 1949 Dutchy asks, my daughter lives in a bungalow out the back and believes it's haunted. Glasses falling on the floor and smashing, etc. What is the easiest / cheapest way to start off to discover if there's an entity out there? I mean, the cheapest option, hands down, is to just get somebody else to do it, because you look up a paranormal group, they've already got all the equipment they need to investigate, they're experienced. I mean, do your research first, obviously, don't just invite anybody in, but some paranormal groups, they're out there to help people. That's what they want to do. So some will do it for free. Like they don't necessarily want the payment, they want the experience as well. So I mean, that's an option if that's what you want to do. If you want to do it yourself, as I say in all my videos, do be careful, because some doors aren't so easily closed once open. But if you do want to do it yourself and you're willing to take that risk, then your phone has an audio recorder. You could just as easily do an EVP on there, download spirit box apps, ghost radars, EMF detectors. Like, your phone can do a lot of stuff. So there are a lot of free apps out there for that. Just check the reviews and make sure what you're getting is authentic, really. Winter asks, did your girlfriend leave you because you are emotionally involved with discarnate entities? I mean, it's a bit personal, but I'd kind of understand why you would ask. I mean, you don't ever see her on camera, but I have explained in the past that it's easy to forget when you're watching YouTube videos that not everybody actually wants to be on camera. Like, I'm happy to document things and show you stuff as it happens and share my opinions, but if she doesn't want to be on camera, I'm not going to follow her around and try to get her opinions for you. Like, that's up to her. Like, she doesn't want to be on the internet seen by thousands of people. I'm lucky she's been in a few shots before where things were happening in the bedroom. Like, believe me, that took some debating to be allowed to do that. So no, yeah, you won't see her. We are still together, and that's about it. Bagging Books asks, do you think spirits can remember? For me, I've always thought of them as energy that is set on a loop forever in a limbo, doomed to repeat the same actions over and over. Have you ever given any thought to that? I do personally think that they can remember. I mean, there have been instances where, like, for example, I speak to Daniel and Anna on a number of occasions, and I don't have to repeat the actions. I say, "Oh, I spoke to you about this before. Was that you?" And they've acknowledged it and said yes. Like, they must remember that previous session in order to do that. I think that I agree that they're made up of energy, but I think it's energy like kind of like the electrical impulses in your mind. That is what becomes the spirit. That's what holds the personality, what holds the memories. And I think in that same way, so long as there is enough energy there is no reason them impulses should fade. Like, energy doesn't just disappear, it transforms. And so long as that energy is held, then I think they're plenty able to remember things. But the entities that you're referring to that kind of repeat themselves and they do the same actions over and over, that's what we call like residual hauntings and like residual spirits. And in theory, you don't even have to have died for a residual haunting to happen. It's like if I was to make the same journey through this house every day for the next 60 years, like, my energy will almost like absorb into the house. This is all theory. Like, it was to absorb into the house. Then 60 years from then, somebody moves in after I'm dead and gone. That energy somehow repeats itself, and so they hear that journey being undertaken because it's something that I've done so often. Now, there are theories out there that you don't even have to have died for that to happen. If I've lived in a house and I've done a particular action so frequently that my energy has been absorbed in, if I was to move and somebody else moved in, there's nothing to say that it has to be 60 years from then. It could be 2 years later. It could happen the same year I've moved out. Like, that energy has just dispersed itself, and that's where you get the residual hauntings. But yeah, like, residual hauntings, the ones that are doomed to repeat themselves, they don't hold the intelligence. That is literally just energy, just being released and repeating actions that have already happened before. Laura asks, what do you think determines whether a spirit is protective or friendly as opposed to a negative spirit or demon? Do you think it could be influenced by how they died or the sort of person they were when alive? I definitely think personality in life has a huge amount to do with how you are as a spirit. If you're a kind-hearted person, I don't see why when you pass away that your spirit would become negative or anything like that. I think you would maintain that positivity. And for me, spirits are all to do with the electrical impulses within your body. Like, your mind holds your personality, and so them electrical impulses become the spirit, and so your personality is transferred over in that way. The only way I could imagine a positive person becoming a negative entity is if they died under some sort of circumstances that left them angry at like a particular person or something like that, and like a person would if left to their own devices, and they would just stew on their own anger and then become in some way negative. I think that could happen, but for the most part, they're just going to become a positive entity. Like, there's no reason they would be negative. The same goes for negative entities. If a person's evil in life, for lack of a better term, then I reckon they would go on to become negative entities. Not saying demons, but just not very nice spirits, and the kind of ones that would cause trouble and do horrible shit in houses. Mark asks, Michael, what do you think of these programs like Ghost Adventures or Most Haunted? Do you believe all the encounters they have are genuine, or are they faking a lot of the activity for entertainment? It's really hard to say because I'm not on the other side of the camera. I have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. But I think you've got to take all paranormal shows, YouTube, TV, anything like that, with a grain of salt, because unless it's a first-hand experience, you've just got to take it for what it is. The problem with TV shows is there are a lot of pressures from above, because if you've promised to put out 12 episodes investigating different locations, if you go to that location and you don't find anything, there are going to be people up top that are going, this show will get cancelled unless you produce results. And as legitimate an investigator as you are, if that's your job, that's your livelihood, I can understand why those people would then have to fake evidence to keep the show alive, because end of the day, they as much as they want to capture evidence, if they're not, their job's gone, kind of thing, you know what I mean? So I think some of it is pretty legit. Like I do watch a lot of ghost shows, and I do watch some stuff and just like my mind's blown. I'm like, that is amazing. But I would usually, I tend to, and this is terrible. I tend to look at the smaller bits of evidence that they capture, and I'm more likely to believe the smaller stuff than the bigger stuff. And it's terrible because like people say the same thing to me. Like if I put an EVP up, they're like, yeah, I can believe that, but I don't believe for a second that remote got thrown. And it's a terrible frame of mind. But thinking of it from like a TV producer's point of view, like they probably got very excited about this light anomaly and this EVP, but the producer's like, we want something bigger than that. Like this is the season finale, you need to do something huge. And so like those pressures are what it's terrible. I'm not saying that all ghost hunting shows are fake or anything like that. I'm sure there are a lot of legit, but you've got to look at it from that point of view and just think, well, I'll take it for what it is. And so that's it for this week's Q&A, guys. I hope I answered your questions sufficiently and in enough detail. Like I said before, if I didn't get to your question in this video, don't worry, I might get to it in the next one. If not, just drop it down in the comments and I'll answer it as soon as I can. So thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll post any and all activity as and when I get it.